Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video, which will take us to around the 9th or 10th of April. So we're extending into the second week of April with a week to 10 day video update time frame now. And we'll be able to move out beyond that, actually with the extended GFS and E7 ensembles over into around a couple of weeks. So it'll take us pretty much to the middle of April. So I'll get on that very shortly. Just say that the ECMWF 30-day look ahead has been released. That's the first video up today. So that's looking at the weather for not just UK but for the rest of Europe as well for the next 4 weeks. So have a look at that and see what's being predicted for April. And we've got the Easter update coming up for you this evening. Our latest Easter update will be ahead probably around 6-7 o'clock, something like that, I would have thought. Before we do anything else, I've got to say a big thank you to our latest PayPal donor. So we've had a donation through PayPal for Gazworthies from Ilya Illart. So big thank you to Ilya for becoming our latest PayPal donor. Thank you so much for doing that, Ilya. If you would like to become a PayPal donor for Gazworthies, all you need to do is come to Gazworthies' PayPal page, sign into your PayPal account, and then give a donation to Gazworthies however much you want. And we're going to give you a mention in the videos as long as you want one. So, if you'd rather stay anonymous, that's absolutely fine. Just leave a little note with your donation and let us know you'd rather not have a mention. But otherwise, we will give you a mention and we'll say thank you very much for your donation. So big thank to Ilya and all PayPal donors for Gazworthies for doing that. There's also patrons. Well, we've got 64 patrons so far. So hello and a big thank you to our 64 patrons. If you'd like to become a patron for Gazworthies, all you need to do is come to Gazworthies' Patreon page. You sign into your you sign up for a Patreon account, assuming you don't already have one, and then you give an ongoing monthly donation. It can be anything from $1 a month upwards to Gazworthies, and by doing that you become a patron. And whether you do it through Patreon or PayPal, you're going to get a mention in videos. We will give you a shout out. We'll say thank you so much for doing that. We're primarily ads funded and will be remaining so, but at the moment ad revenues are dropping very substantially as we go through the coronavirus crisis. We are seeing a very significant drop in ad revenues, and so the other streams such as Patreon and PayPal are very helpful for helping us to keep going through this very difficult financial time. So yeah, big thank you to all of our patrons, big thank you to all of our donors for Gazworthies. We will have a live stream coming up for you tomorrow between 4 and 5 in the afternoon UK time, where we're just going to check in with all of the Gazworthies viewers and followers. We've had to close down the comment box temporarily for the time being at Gazworthies.com because that's a subscription-based comment box, and we're going to cut back on the revenue, on the outgoings a little bit as revenues are declining so significantly. So in replacement of that, we're going to be doing a couple of live streams twice a week just so that everybody can check in and we can make sure that everybody is okay. So the first one of those will be tomorrow afternoon, Wednesday afternoon between 4 and 5 p.m. So put that in your diary if you haven't yet done so. I say big thank you to all of our patrons, big thank you to all of our donors for Gazworthies at this very, very difficult time for everyone. And of course, a special thank you to latest donor Ilya for your donation. Thank you so much, Ilya, for doing that. Right, so we're going to start off with the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. We're looking at Nottingham today. So red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Nottingham. And we're starting off a bit on the colder than average side at the moment. Actually, temperatures are pretty low and will remain so really through to the weekend. But through the weekend, the temperatures are going to be lifting up. So it's going to become quite warm, actually, over the weekend. I think we could see temperatures pushing up into the mid to upper teens Celsius. Maybe you would totally rule out by Sunday afternoon somewhere across eastern England, perhaps reaching 20 or 21 degrees. That's around 70 Fahrenheit for the first time this season. So it is going to become quite warm over the weekend. And although we get a little bit of a drop early next week, the temperature lifts up again as we go through next week. So quite a mild phase, or quite a warmish phase of weather coming up, actually, with temperatures quite significantly above average after what is going to be, and is, a cold start to April. The one problem is that it looks like as we go along, it becomes more unsettled again. So certainly for next week, there's going to be loads of dry weather, barely any precipitation to worry us. But as we go further on towards the end of the first week of April and into the second week of April, it looks like the precipitation spikes will be returning. And there could actually be some quite wet weather there, somewhere around the 6th, 7th of April, and again, sometime around the 10th or the 11th of April. Of course, that's getting into the Easter period as well. So, yeah, quite a bit of precipitation coming up there through the second week of April. It does look a little bit more unsettled after a cold and dry start. Temperatures will lift up, it will become warmer, it will become milder, but it may also become rather more unsettled as well. We can see this lift up in the temperature on this graph. Again, this is for Nottingham. This is showing the overall temperature, maximum and minimum. Got the dates on the bottom of the chart. So it's kind of like an ensemble, same as what you're looking at, but instead of looking at the upper air temperatures, it's looking at surface temperatures. So at the moment, we're in this cold phase of weather, of course. Temperatures are staying in single digits, stubbornly so, at Nottingham, and getting perilously close to freezing levels overnight as well, and that carries on through to the end of the week. But as we get into the weekend, you see this lift up in the temperature is taking place, a clear warming trend, lifting temperatures into the mid to upper teens Celsius there as we go through to the weekend and then into the early part of next week. A slight drop in the temperature back down to around 10 Celsius or so early next week. But overall, once we get this week out of the way, it does look as though temperatures are going to be certainly warmer than they are this week. So if we draw a line, that's where the maximum temperatures are through this week. But next week, the maximum temperatures are sort of going to be in that kind of zone. So definitely warmer from the weekend and into next week compared to this week. We are going to have a milder phase of weather coming up. Temperature anomalies from the 31st of March to the 8th of April are going to be a little bit below average. I expect these will trend warmer now over the next few days, but for the moment, still just about coming out on the colder than average side. And precipitation anomalies showing wetter than average conditions for Scotland and Northern Ireland. But for England and Wales, actually quite significantly drier than average still. They may trend wetter in the next few days, we'll have to see. That's how the GFS looks for Friday, then. So on Friday, we're putting down cold northerly winds into Scandinavia. We're just on the periphery of those cold northerly winds, but we will dig some cold air down into Scotland. Most definitely cold air will dig in there. Further south, though, this ridge of high pressure will just keep the coldest of the air to the north and to the east. And then as we get into weekend, all change. That high pressure then drifts over towards central eastern parts of Europe. Low pressure develops out of the Atlantic, and the squeeze of the isobars starts to pull the air up from the south. So if you follow the isobars back, the air is originating from quite a long way south, actually, from down around Spain and that sort of area. It's wafting up the western side of Europe, and so yes, temperatures will be lifting up really quite substantially as we go through the weekend. Certainly mid to upper teens Celsius possible for eastern parts of the country. Do have to watch out for the chance of some cooler conditions in the far northwest, which is maybe a bit more unsettled there. I won't be at all surprised to see somewhere in eastern England, maybe Norwich, maybe London, reaching around 20 or 21 on Sunday afternoon if there's enough sunshine. Now, by Monday, quite a sort of vigorous area of low pressure develops out to west, so that starts to bring wet windy weather across the country. We saw it on the ensemble graph, and as we go through to next week, it does start to turn more unsettled. So you could all get a bout of rain through the early part of next week, followed by a slight drop in the temperature. But then through the middle and second half of next week, excuse me, we go back into that southerly wind again, with high pressure centred to the east, so low pressure out to west. The wind starts to push up from the south once again. That will start to allow much warmer air to begin to move northwards across the western side of Europe. So a little bit more unsettled early next week, and a slight drop in temperature, then back to those warmer southerly winds. That's how long as we get to day 10. The high pressure is trying to get itself up towards Scandinavia. Low pressure is out to our west. So at this point, probably going a bit more unsettled again, but should be relatively warm. And then into the more extended range, we start to get this area of high pressure reaching in from the Azores in towards France, Spain and Portugal. Low pressure again remains out to the north and west of the country. We go rather flat and rather zonal again as we go towards the middle of April. And then we get to the very end of this GFS run, which gets us to the 16th of April. We are looking quite zonal then. High pressure is out to our west-southwest. Low pressure is up to the north. We're bringing this flat westerly flow across the country, rather showery, and not particularly exciting temperatures either with that. Of course, very long way out, that's over 2 weeks away. GM looks like this, so again, we're on the periphery of those northerly winds at the end of the week, but it will turn cold across the northern half of the country through the end of the week. Into the weekend, the high pressure then drifts away to the east, low pressure is out to the west, and we're pulling up these very mild or even quite warm southerly winds. However, it does tend to be unsettled through the early part of next week. But overall, we keep this sort of pattern going of high pressure to the east, low pressure to the west. Winds continue to waft up from the south, so it should be relatively mild or even quite warm through much of next week. That's how we're looking at today 10. So very little change at this point. Low pressure is out to the northwest, and the Atlantic high pressure is to our east, or a ridge of high pressure is to the east. It should be quite settled, really, and it should be relatively warm as well. The ECM, again, northerly winds, particularly digging into the northern half of the country through the latter stages of this week. But the weekend, we'll see the high pressure drifting away to the east. The low pressure is out to the west. And we have these southerly winds pushing up the air from North Africa and from the Mediterranean as well. And then going into the early part of next week, well, on Monday we look quite unsettled with low pressure out to the northwest. That could bring a band of rain across the country. But through to the middle of next week, again, we have this scenario of high pressure to our east and low pressure to our west, which draws up southerly winds. Could be quite unsettled in the northwest with some bands of rain up there. But down in the south-southeast, there should be a reasonable amount of dry weather. And as we get to day 10, that's how we look. And still the broad theme continues with low pressure to the west of Ireland and a ridge of high pressure across sort of France, Low Countries and Germany. It keeps the wind from the south, so it should be relatively mild or even quite warm. This is Good Friday, of course. It should be relatively mild or even quite warm. And you would expect most of the rain in the west, mainly dry across the eastern parts of the country. As I say, we'll be doing the second Easter update later on. These options on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which is the 10th of April, which of course is Good Friday, as I just said. We've got 28 members of the ECM ensembles with low pressure to our north, high pressure is to the south, and we're bringing like a flat westerly type flow. So with that, the driest weather will be in the south and southeast. The most unsettled weather will be in the north and northwest. All areas seeing relatively mild or maybe quite warm temperatures. And 23 members of the ECM ensembles actually have more of a ridge over to the east and south of the country, with the low pressure a little bit further away from us to the northwest. And again, we're drawing up really quite mild or even relatively warm southerly to southwesterly winds with that. So definitely becoming drier and warmer on that solution. And then in 2 weeks' time, this is the option that we got. This gets us to the 15th of April. So we have 51 out of 51 members of the ECM ensembles then that have low pressure out to our north and northwest. High pressure is to the south. And we're sort of bringing again a flat westerly type flow. So should be relatively settled, I would have thought, for more southern parts of the country. Could be a little bit on the unsettled side up in the north. That's quite weak, though, that scenario. So it's one of those things that could go either way, actually. You would expect a reasonable amount of dry weather, but it's not all that far from being quite unsettled. And then finally, the CFS-V2, so these are 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 31st of March to the 6th of April. The coming week has below average heights up to our north and northeast, above average heights out to our west and northwest. We look unsettled and cool here, bringing in the winds from the northwest. So it remains quite cold, not as cold as it has been, perhaps not bringing in northeasterly winds, but the wind direction is still sort of northwesterly, so certainly won't be particularly warm, let's put it that way. But all changes we go through to week 2, which is the 7th to the 13th of April, above average heights then to our east and to our south, below average heights in the middle of the Atlantic. Winds are being dragged up from the south and southwest, so that's becoming a lot drier. High pressure, of course, is in control both to the south and the east of the country. It's also becoming warmer as well, with temperatures really pushing up there, you would have thought. Week 3 looks quite good as well. This is the 14th to the 20th of April, an area of above average heights centred right over top of the country, below average heights out to the west, to the northwest. Jet stream is moving northwards as well, so that is definitely settling things down once again, or it's keeping things settled as we get through the middle part of April. Mainly dry and quite warm. And then into week 4, which is the 21st to 27th of April, the above average heights then are sort of over to the southwest of the country, below average heights up to the north. Looks like the ridge is weakening, but probably still quite an influence from high pressure, I would have thought. So even then, we should have a reasonable amount of dry weather, and you would have thought with the wind direction still from the south to southwest, should be relatively mild. So once we get the next few days out of the way, which are going to be quite cold, once these next few days are out of the way, looks like April may actually turn out to be a relatively warm and possibly, at least at times, relatively settled month. So we could well be in for not a bad month of it, actually, if the CFS and some of the more extended range charts are correct. Of course, there will be rain at times, not going to be completely dry for a month, although we did have a couple of Aprils that were virtually completely dry not all that long ago, 2007 and 2011. So you can get almost a universally dry month in April, but I don't think you're going to have that kind of month. But I think overall, probably we're favouring relatively warmish and dryish conditions once we get the opening sort of 5 days or so out of the way, which will be cold. Once they're out of the way, we're looking at a relatively mildish period, certainly up to towards the Easter period, for example. And talking of Easter, we'll be back later on with the second Easter 2020 update, so come back for that later. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.